What kind of man do you want to become? What kind of man do you want to become? For my young men out there, my young men, what kind of man do you want to become? That's the question you got to ask yourself. Assess how you're living your life and think about what kind of man you want to become. What do you envision for yourself? What are your values? What do you believe in? What kind of man do you want to become? You know, everybody don't get a role model. You may not have somebody in direct contact with that can show you. You may not have had a father figure. You may not have had a male influence. But at some point, you're going to have to ask yourself, what kind of man do you want to become? What do you want to believe in? What are your core values? What can you stand for? You got to set some guidelines. You got to set some principles. You can't just go with the flow and allow the world to sway you back and forth in terms of the direction of your life. You have to decide what kind of man you want to become. And that's going to be different for every man. Every man has a different set of principles that he lives by, a different set of values, things that are important to him. Once you determine that, that helps you figure out who you fit best with. That helps you figure out where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, what you like, what you engage in doing. You start to understand yourself more, and then you start to associate with people that can help you get to where you're going. But you have to ask yourself, what kind of man you want to become? You have to make that decision. You know, I think there's a perception that there aren't fathers guiding wisdom, teaching the next generation on things they need to do. But the answer is you have to decide what kind of man you want to become. Who you want to be. And then you have to live your life according to that, according to those principles, according to those values, according to those priorities. You live your life in accordance with that. And then you figure out how to improve, how to make it better, how to niche down, how to figure out more about that direction. That's what life is about. It's not a clear path. We got pressure on all our young men feeling like they got to have everything figured out by the time they're 21 years old. And that's ridiculous. You don't even know who you are at 21. You're still trying to figure things out. You got to decide what kind of man you want to become. If you listen to me enough, you know my motto is you are the wealth. You are the wealth. You are the source of any execution in your life. Before you do anything, you have to conceive it in your mind and to make it happen. You are the source of the wealth. Your talents, your abilities, your gifts, the things that you've already been blessed with. You have to hone in on them. You have to improve them. You have to put pressure on them to make them expand, to make them grow. That's how you develop as a person. That's how you find out more about yourself. You have to fail. You have to fail forward. When you fail, it tells you how committed you are to a thing. Because if you fail at something, and even when you fail, you just can't stop thinking about it, you're still interested in it, you still want to do it, it makes you want to try harder, that means something. That failure is an indication of your willingness to move forward. But you have to fail to be able to do it. You got to put enough pressure on it to be able to do it. We have to be willing to fail to get better. We have to be willing to stretch ourselves. We got to get out of this comfort zone. We have to be able to stretch ourselves. Failure is an indication of how willing you are, how committed you are to a thing. If you fail at it and you feel no emotion towards it, maybe that's not your direction. Maybe that's not your path. Maybe you're not as committed as you thought to it. If you don't feel the desire to improve it, failure is that indication. You have to fail to know that. So we can't be afraid to fail. We constantly failing. We failing in our 20s, we failing in our 30s. As we get older, if you are not failing, you are not trying, you are not growing. A root is always looking for a new direction to grow. A root is always looking for a new direction to grow. So you can't be afraid to fail. I just don't hear anybody speaking to our people in a positive light. It's just all this conflict right now. It's all this blaming of who's doing this and who's doing that. But none of that matters if you are not holding yourself accountable. If you are not starting with yourself, without you not looking in your own mirror. You are the wealth. There's three ways to build wealth: to buy assets, to create assets, and to become an asset. And the foundation of one is to become an asset. You have to become an asset. You have to become the best version of yourself, physically, intellectually, spiritually. You want to specialize. You want to master something. That's how you become the wealth. You have to commit to something. Once you master something, nobody can take it from you. It can replenish itself. Once you master something, it can feed you forever. It becomes the foundation, the seed of which you build your wealth upon. And you take that thing that you master and you use it to grow. And you use it to be able to grow until eventually it's allowed to branch off into other interests that you might have, to other things that you might want to get into, to other things that you're interested in. But it's built on the foundation of something that you master. That's how you build wealth. It has to be connected to you. The iPhones that we all plan on right now is something that Steve Jobs, once he saw the idea, the ideas of how that thing came to be, that came from somebody creating that. They had to develop that from within to manifest it on the outside. It starts from within. You have to master something. That's how you build a wealth. Yeah, you can make money doing things. You can be avid, but wealth is the trade between time and money. It's the separation of time and money. And so the goal with wealth is to separate your time from your money. Separate an increase in your money from an increase in your time. It's a trade-off. Your goal is that your wealth to grow without the requirement of your time. That's the goal. My wealth is going up and I don't have to do anything to make it go up. But in the beginning, you don't have any wealth. The only wealth that you have is your own human capital. The sum total of your talents, your abilities, your gifts, the things that you can do, the things you know how to do, the things that you're interested in, the things that you're good at, the things that you a little bit faster at, the things that you're committed to working on. That's the only thing that you have when you start out life. And you develop interests, you develop things, and you start to invest your time. And then once you get some resources, then you start to invest your resources. But all of that has to be built on the foundation of you as the source of the wealth. You are the wealth. That's what that means. If you got it, God already gave it to you. One of my favorite books, The Alchemist. Guy travels all the way around on the other side of the world looking for something, only to realize it's already within him. He had it the whole time, but he had to go through the journey to realize that. The journey was necessary for him to realize that. The failures, the trials, the tribulations, you were the wealth, but the journey is the confirmation. It is the requirement for you to stretch it to become what it needs to be. So I just want us to win, man. Like I just want us to win and get rid of this hate, this blaming, this relieving of power, relinquishing of power into other people's hands of things that we already have the power to do ourselves. If I have a problem that only somebody else can fix, then I'm powerless to what they're willing to give me to fix my problem. But if I don't need them to fix my problem, then anything that they owe me or anything that I'm deserving of, I can demand because I'm not dependent on them for anything. That's the kind of position I want to be in life. You are the wealth. And eventually, as you become more valuable, as your value translates to financial capital and other resources, and you reinvest that capital, into other things. And eventually your wealth grows and grows until that wealth is enough to replace your income, to replace your need tenfold, to replace your need 20-fold, 30-fold, depending upon how much wealth you accumulate. That's the goal. And now you doing what you love because you've already traded your time for your money. You've got your time back. And your wealth is there for your children's children. That's generational wealth. That's generational wealth. It's that simple. So I was just venting. I'll talk to y'all later. Appreciate you listening. Really do. Damn it.